Noah, you never give the true information. Why do you all your charts peg? Can you ever put a band higher to account for these new measurements? Was it really that difficult to add a 1,000 on top of that, or a 1,200 millimeter range, so we can get the true indication of how much water has come down in these areas? Or wouldn't you want people to see the trend? There's millions and millions, tens of millions of tons of grain stacked up and down the Mississippi under tarp. And lo and behold, the largest floods, 1874? Okay, that's in the upper reaches in the Mississippi. Ice melt, snow melt. And I can almost guarantee it, with geoengineering, they're going to pound this place with a huge amount of rainfall. It's going to be record floods. And they could blame it right back on the sulfur dioxide. But imagine washing all this stored grain down the stream. Welcome back for the second half of many Ice Age conversations right here, Brighteon TV, 2 to 3 p.m. every other Friday. David Dubine taking you through some information on cooling and how our narratives will be set in the coming food shortage, quote unquote, for more control. Now, talking about sulfur dioxide and sulfur dioxide concentrations cooling ground temperatures, now let's add in some water for fun. We all like the pool. It's coming to summertime, splash, splash. Need to take you back in time a little bit, January 15th. Let's remember that Hunga-Tonga eruption, largest water vapor eruption in human history, blasting water vapor up 180,000 feet into the atmosphere. There's about some new peer-reviewed research saying tens of thousands, up to hundreds of thousands of times more ice crystal clouds in that layer of the atmosphere that's normally very dry than the normal, but they're very sure within 3 years it'll sift itself out. But we only have to wait 3 years for runaway ozone depletion. That's okay. We'll live through it. As long as you're in a cave, 10% more increase in moisture is what that put into the atmosphere. So put that in context just for a second here. One eruption came up out of the ocean and added 10% more moisture in a single day to the world's cloud cells, systems in the air. It pushed up 10% more moisture. So when you're seeing this record snowfall, record rains, record hail size, that's a direct result of this. Everything should be at least 10% larger. So a lot of these records, if they're only broken by, a tenth of an inch or something, they're going to be broken by a full inch. If last year's record was broken by 1 inch, then the new record should be broken by percentages of tens going up from that. So the total mass of precipitable water adds into, that runs into the ozone depletion, which starts to give a narrative why southern hemisphere crops won't be so productive this year. We've already run through this point where we don't grow enough wheat currently on the planet to satiate the demand for industry and those who want to use wheat in products. 3rd year in a row now, we're below that. So we finally come over it. And, I used this chart a couple weeks ago, 3rd year in a row. So you could anticipate with even more difficulties now that would trend toward a 4th year in a row of less wheat than we actually can grow, than we can provide for the planet. So each year, we're digging into the carryover stocks. Now, less grown crops like barley, millet, sorghum are going to have a much greater effect on price than, say, wheat or soy. Oats would be another one that's going to be disrupted. Let's talk about rice for a second. Global rice shortage. At the same time, the World Economic Forum comes out and says we should not eat rice because it produces too much methane. Well, it's not really, it produces too much methane. It's after they harvest it, the way most farmers put nutrients back in the fields is they burn it. Now that it's warm enough for hiking and biking, I really want to feel good. I take C60 EVO olive oil in the morning and have amazing results all day long. It improves my mental focus and clarity so I can complete projects, and I sleep better at night. I definitely have more energy and endurance, and my skin improving. C60 EVO works. They sell 3 potent edible oils that are delicious: olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT coconut.
They also make exceptional anti-aging face and lip serums for both men and women. Everything's made in their U.S. labs, and they do ship all around the world. Treat yourself, your pets, and those you love to healthy products that really improve your life. Save 15% off bundled product sets. That's 15% off each bottle. Also, monthly subscriptions, save 20%. Use the code ADAPT2030 at checkout. That's c60evo.com/adapt2030. So good, I had to put it in front of the moose. And now on with the video.
So if you've ever traveled in Thailand, like right about now, during the smoky season, a lot of people leave because it just gets way too smoky. Everybody's burning their field debris, for a better term. Okay, if that could be managed better, but then you're going to have to provide a substitute for that, because that's the way it's been done for thousands, plural, of years. And suddenly, with the on high, you're not allowed to grow rice anymore. It's too much methane. Just like the cows, you can't have cows anymore, too much methane. So you can see this step-by-step complete constriction of the food supply. Well, it's at a 20-year low in rice at the moment. Leaders around the world and the IPC, everybody very happy about this because they want to keep it this way and reduce rice production further, because it says supposedly more methane is released. But I'm just wondering, how many of those ships cruising across the ocean for these multinational companies are releasing a huge amount of sulfur dioxide and methane into the atmosphere when they burn dirty bunker fuels? I'm not the one with a giant container ship. I don't have a factory. Everything that the multinationals do is to sell you a product for their bottom line to increase it, and the advertising, billions spent on advertising to convince you to buy a product you don't need, and then the blame comes back to you, the individual, for the changes and problems around the world that we're seeing, from pollution to overpopulation, whatever the moniker is for the moment. How can it be blamed on us? We're not the ones that are billion-dollar companies pushing these factories and everything. I digress. Excuse me. Sometimes I get off on a tangent. But Argentina soybean output going to get cut even further. There's losses happening across southern hemisphere. The thing I wanted to focus on was the left here. The U.S. barge traffic halted because of floods. Now, I said floods already because just even, back in October, lowest water ever in the Mississippi. So low that you see that line of trucks right there, they were all trying to deliver grain from the barges off the river into grain silos and storage facilities, warehouses. But they became so full, and all the barges were trying to unload at the same time, so they decided to put it next to the Mississippi River under tarp. And then suddenly, these barges, they were all stuck, couldn't move. Army Corps of Engineers tried to dredge, they couldn't get enough clearance, and it became a bottleneck. There's millions and millions, tens of millions of tons of grain stacked up and down the Mississippi under tarp. And lo and behold, the largest floods, 1874? Okay. That's in the upper reaches in the Mississippi. Ice melt, snow melt. And I can almost guarantee it, with geoengineering, they're going to pound this place with a huge amount of rainfall. It's going to be record floods. And they could blame it right back on the sulfur dioxide. But imagine washing all this stored grain down the stream, and every single possible square inch of storage facilities on this river are so full that you couldn't even put another grain of anything into it. Now, once that gets wet, and that water in the flood starts to wick up the column there, they have to destroy that grain. So you might think, okay, well, it's just going to be the stuff under the tarps that gets ruined or flooded. It'll be everything that's in a storage facility too. So this would be one way to wipe out a huge amount of grains. Remember when I talked about stored grains, this carryover stocks? That was counted as this stuff on the Mississippi. So if you're going to wipe out 100 million tons, or let's say 80 million tons of stored grain on the riverside, then you're already at a deficit, and you just lost 80 million tons in your carryover stock, which will feed into, oh, there's a rice shortage. Oh, there's a grain shortage. Oh, there's this or that shortage. You can see how it's moving. Oh, now we have the sulfur dioxide. Oh, there's delayed planting. Highest level in 20 years, that comes back. And, I must really split the hair on this one. It's the third time this high water level since 1874. It's not the record broken since 1874, but it's the third time since 1874 that it's gone above 15 feet. Now, this flood event is nowhere near complete. So at the end of it, it could be the all-time high record, but right now it sits in the top 3. Highest river level in 20 years. Wait a second. Where did I hear that 20-year mark used before? Oh, yeah, the rice shortages. So 20 years seems to be a thing they're picking right now. So there's a lot of news articles coming out with the words 20 years on it. 20-year shortages, 20-year floods. Let's talk about floods. I like water. Like I say, summer's coming. Let's splash in the pool. We'll go tubing down the river. Rainfall. Anything pink at the top of the chart is literally off the charts, which would be a doubling, tripling, quadrupling of rainfall. We don't really know because the chart has been pegged, so your imagination can go wherever it goes. NOAA, you never give the true information. Why do you all your charts peg? Can you ever put a band higher to account for these new measurements? Was it really that difficult to add a 1,000 on top of that or a 1,200 millimeter range so we can get the true indication of how much water has come down in these areas? Or wouldn't you want people to see the trend? Like same thing with sulfur dioxide. That was literally off the charts for weeks, plural. They were pegged at 100. It was probably around 300. But again, we'll never know the true data because even when you clicked in there, it just went, 100. It kept pegging at the 100 level there. So we can see the amount of precipitation from the Hunga-Tonga eruption starting to really manifest and rain out of the skies. Equatorial, about 10 degrees to 20 degrees south latitude and right at the equator and a little bit over the equator, probably about 10 degrees north latitude is where a lot of this water is getting sandwiched at the moment. So you look at it and go, okay, well, we'll go up to the Philippines. It even is that far up north. Now, if you look at the correlating December to February 2023 NOAA temperature charts, which is sickening in my opinion because you can't update your charts. NOAA, February 25th, that's your latest data points. What happened to all of March? You're at least 6 weeks behind on posting the data. I wonder why. Because it shows no warming. White means nothing, 0. So you look at this and you go, wow, all those extra cloud covers having an effect on supposedly runaway global temperatures, warmest year ever, ever. Why are they so late in putting out the temperature deltas coming up for March? I wonder. And if we scroll down to December, this is the latest, this is the most up-to-date data I could get for this slide presentation. NOAA is this is a government agency. They should have up to the minute, up to the week. I'll give you up to the week. Doesn't even have to be up to the week. Where is that? You're 7-8 weeks behind on that. That's really unacceptable for a government agency to claim global warming up to the hilt and then don't even have the charts to prove it, except, oh, wait, there's so much blue on that one in Australia, down 1 to 3 degrees. Wait, could we map that up with the temperatures, with the rainfall and the clouds? Yeah, there's more cloud cover, so there's not as much sunlight striking the ground surface. So, of course, you're going to get moderate, even cooling a little bit. If we come up here to northern and southern parts of South America, we see the same thing. This is the same exact band where Hunga-Tonga had erupted. And again, there's no 1,000 millimeter or 1,200 or 1,500 millimeter band on here so we could truly see how much rain is coming down. It's masked in the data. It's hidden in the data itself. Well, we didn't know. We couldn't anticipate a chart needed to be bigger. Everything's supposed to be amplifying, so wouldn't you project in the future that you're going to need larger scales for measurement? Just saying. Southern Africa here, again, you look at that, I don't see that much warming in all these charts here. I see a lot of white or a little blue, some spackling of 1 to 3 Celsius, but it's not that much. And then if we look at the February 2023 NOAA data, I just showed you the NOAA data by the continents. And here's their map, 4th warmest February ever, 2023. Now let's look at those same areas I just showed you on the maps. Southern Africa, North and South America, Australia. I showed you all white on those charts because there was no temperature increases, predominantly, some cooling even more in Australia. Now, what do you see in the Southern Hemisphere? I see red, 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 more red, brick red, light red, pinks, happy. Now, how can the same agency put out the same data with two completely different sets of percentiles at the end? I don't know. I'm baffled. I'm truly baffled. Warmest on record. Yeah, you notice where all the warmest on records are too. In the middle of the ocean where nobody can verify it. Unless you're sailing through that and you just happen to have a thermometer with you and keep your own ship log or your sail logs. Nobody's out there to say, no, it wasn't that hot. Come on. And then if we go to March 2023, again, some of the temperatures that we're looking at with so much extra cloud cover and anomalous cold events that have been through the last month, and they still show March as runaway heating. Again, there's a huge problem and huge disconnect with this agency right here. Like, see, what I did is I pulled the official data where they know scientists are going to go look at it, but this is for the general public release, so they're trying to keep that narrative of warming alive. But I just caught them contradicting themselves. So you can do that all day long, all day long. Now here is the ozone. What I want you to look at on the left side there is up near southern South America, that striation that has opened up. This is what they call the crop killer zone. The ozone is depleting much faster than anticipated, let's say. It doesn't usually get this kind of start, or what we're looking at on the left side, until somewhere around June. But the question was always from the beginning, knowing that there was all these extra ice crystal clouds in the mesosphere, how much and how far north was this going to extend off of the Antarctic Circle, and how far was that going to pull back? Was it going to be, would it stop at 50 south? Would it stop at 40 south, 45 south? Because the crops being grown down there are at much lower latitudes than in the States. They're still producing crops down in Chile, Argentina, way south. Australia also, way further south. Tasmania, New Zealand, comparatively to where we sit and it gets really cold in some of these plains states in Canada, central Canada, these are way more temperate. There's a lot of ocean surrounding these areas, keeping the climates very different. So what I'm looking at is that crop killer emergence in the ozone showing itself already on the left there. Now, if we go back to April 21, I try to keep the dates exactly the same, April 26th of 2021 versus left side 2023. What you'll also notice in the 2021 chart at the bottom left is that really nice, chunky, refilling, healing itself of 400 plus Dobson units, meaning more ozone in the column. That's great to see. I approve of a healed ozone hole to allow our planet to get back more in symbiosis or homeostasis from the damage we've done to it in terms of chemicals and pollutants. What we're seeing on the left side here, it's already really starting to show runaway and very amplified depletion of ozone at the end of this. And as we get into July and August, this is going to become one of the #1 news stories on the planet. Forewarning, front running you here on this one. They're going to have to use this as an excuse and a reason, both, to explain away more crop shortages and the reason for your price increases and the reason that there are shortages and the reason, please, let's all work together. We've been programmed and brainwashed in these last 3 to 4 years, really clubbed over the head like a baby seal for at least the last 5 years. Everything equal. No separation of anything. It's all like we're androgynous space aliens. So you have all these different factors that are going to run in, and they're going to start playing and rolling in together and kneading together like a dough form as we roll out the cookie of digital cookie and digital IDs. I'm going to bake you a story here. So middle of June, early July, this ozone is going to cascade away, and they're going to be baffled as to how much and how catastrophic and how wide the ozone hole suddenly became out of nowhere, and all the crops will be affected. They're going to focus on barley, by the way. That'll be a first one, hint. But as you look already at the charts here, it looks like Southern South America is going to be the thing that they'll focus on first. But this ozone hole, for real, is going to get really wide and really vast. There's going to be a lot of UVB radiation striking the ground, which will have an effect on bird life, plant life, and insect life, and then us as humans. So that'll be a big thing to run with. And as they run with that one, they're going to start talking about all these unusual flood events that are happening from the Middle East, which I'm showing you here, all the way up to the Mississippi Basin, which, by the way, wiped out 100 million tons of grain. We're starting from scratch. Plus, it's such a poor planting season. All the sulfur dioxide. We're going into crop shortage. Oh, the war's not over yet. Oh, by the way, what's that? Ukraine's only going to plant 12% of its field space this year. 2%. That's it. So we're going to have a huge disruption from Black Sea grains, which a lot of African nations depend on, which I'm showing you this chart here. And they're going to run with that. There's going to be seed shortages, grain shortages because of Ukraine. There's going to be some debacle with the amounts of grain and planting in the United States because of this, floods on the Mississippi, and they're going to push in the sulfur dioxide. They're going to run with the southern ozone depletion event. The rice shortages are ongoing. And they're going to point to places like this, and I can explain to you why Sudan is happening at the moment. Heavier rains hit drought-stricken Horn of Africa. Ethiopia, right there. So why am I focused on Ethiopia and Somalia and Sudan? Well, you have the largest hydroelectric dam in Africa right there, Great Renaissance Dam. Now, this was constructed a few years back. It completed. They thought it would take 7 years to fill. It only took 2. So somebody knew the pattern was changing, that this thing was going to fill. Now, if you go right down, a little bit downstream, the Rosaries Dam, that is in Sudan. Whoever controls that dam controls the water for all agriculture in the new agricultural zones being built out in the Sudan. This is what they're fighting for. They're fighting for control of that dam and all the money that's going to come off of the agribusiness that's going to be pushed in there. Who controls the food, controls the army and society. This is not about two factions politically fighting. This is about control of that water source for all irrigation and all croplands. And Sudan has been pegged along with parts of Ethiopia to be the new crop zone because they have a reliable water source with electricity for processing. This has been ongoing. This was talked about in World Bank documents for years on how this is going to be the new place to spark a industrial / economic revolution across Africa. It will all start here first. Whoever controls this gets the lion's share, no kidding, of wealth generated by these new projects. Lion's share, I didn't, well, yeah, speaking of Africa, no pun intended. But that explains the news. So when you look at South Sudan, you look at Sudan, why they're fighting, they want this. You can see how the world's shifting now. Now you just need the food shortages to run into the digital rationing cards. And I hope it made sense the way I was trying to explain it. Because of Sudan, think about that, double crop rotation, they got ports right there, a lot of Chinese investment, huge amounts of hydroelectricity, huge amounts of water that can be put out in irrigation projects. So if you're going to restart a defunct debt system in the West, where we can't really roll out more debt, you could go to these less developed nations and start the whole 80-year fourth turning over again by issuing debt. Oh, wait, the old system needs to collapse first. So I'm wondering if this economic collapse and food shortage things are going to run in tandem as we move in, because the debt will be restructured in Africa. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.